Hey, how's it going? One more attempt to dive into this whole landrace definition topic. Did a post a few days ago on this like web podcast. I don't know what you even call this format, but definitely got some very interesting responses on that. So I'm going to do one more attempt to sort of clear up the definition of landrace and what landrace is, especially applied to cannabis, and then, to tell you the truth, I'm probably moving on from there. So, oh, and by the way, some people have commented about the sound quality. I apologize, there is an echo in here. Full disclosure, I'm sitting in our cannabis drying room right now, and it's just an empty, hollow room, so there's a lot of echo. So maybe we'll attempt to put up some stuff to limit the echo and such, and I'm trying a different microphone. But again, just keep in mind, I am a farmer. I just am spontaneously doing this, so sharing information, so we'll try to improve the quality, but I can't make any promises. Anyway, landrace, let's get right into it. And I think one of the big confusing issues with what landrace is just the word itself. So just going to take a quick dive into where the word landrace originated from. And it turns out it's from a German word, and I apologize, I don't speak German, but I'm going to attempt to do this. But it comes from a German word, Landrasse.
Landrasse.
Okay? And that actually translates in English to country breed, or regional breed, or native breed, or you can also think of like village breed or regional breed. But unfortunately, when Landrasse got switched over into English, they just phonetically matched the sound with landrace. They didn't actually translate the meaning. So in English, it's kind of a confusing word. Like, what does landrace mean? And it conjures up images of like land and maybe racing and this whole diaspora of like cannabis and plants and animals like spreading throughout the planet over time and such like that. But it actually has nothing to do with race or racing or land, really. It just, so maybe it's better to actually translate the original German word and just think, when you say landrace in English, just say country breed or village breed. And so what that actually means is that it's a domestic. So landrace is a domestic breed. And by the way, this really has nothing to do with cannabis. Cannabis just happens to be a domesticated agriculture plant. But landrace also applies to cucumbers, zucchinis, melons, pigs, chickens, dogs, cows, anything that's like farmed or agriculture or pastoral techniques where humans are domesticating, breeding, and basically owning and farming either plants or animals. That's what it applies to. And again, or dogs like Alaskan Huskies or the Inuit sled dog. Those are considered landrace dogs because they were selectively bred by humans over time to then create like the ultimate sled dog that was a work dog for them. So it really has nothing to do with cannabis, but for some reason this ambiguous word landrace, which doesn't really mean anything in English, has somehow gotten twisted, especially with cannabis, that it's this mysterious word that refers to like the original pure cannabis strains, species or such, that originated wild in the forests and jungles of those regions. And it implies almost like this Garden of Eden of cannabis. And so Landrace is like the original strains that no humans have touched or meddled with. And somehow it's like this pure line to cannabis the way the earth and nature created it, which is just, it's not true. I'm sorry. I think it sounds cool. I'd love to fantasize and imagine that there's some secret valley out in the forests of China where there's, you know, these original mystical cannabis plants growing that are looked after by like the golden snub-nosed monkeys. And when you arrive by backpack, you know, there's this Garden of Eden situation. Hold on one moment. I'm filming something! Hey, see what I mean? My teenage daughter was just screaming my name. So anyway, I'm gonna leave that in there just to let you know what's going on. She didn't know I was filming something, so she was trying to find me. Anyway, back to it. Anyway, I love the fantasy of like this original cannabis strain or species that no human ever touched. But the reality is most researchers have come to the conclusion that that original cannabis species is gone. And it either, you know, went extinct, but more likely because cannabis is such a prolific breeder that pollen can spread so easily, is probably the domesticated, and we're going back 10,000, 15, maybe, and who knows how many thousands of years, but the domesticated varieties of cannabis that the humans developed probably then cross-pollinated with the original variety of cannabis. So now it kind of went extinct through hybridization. At least that's a very plausible theory. So anyway, and some people have, you know, people say their snarky remarks and everything and say that I referenced a Wikipedia link on Landrace. And the reason I did that was not saying that this is like the most intense official research on Landrace. It's just a really simple, quick 30-second click that someone can look on and just see that the Wikipedia definition of Landrace is a domesticated, locally adapted, often traditional variety of a species of animal or plant. So it's just a quick way. I wasn't saying that I base all of my knowledge on Wikipedia articles. Anyway, if you want to get deep into some serious informationally dense information on cannabis, highly recommend this book, Cannabis, Evolution and Ethnobotany by Robert Clark. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know him and hanging out with him, and I actually a while ago asked him about the difference between landrace, heirloom, and feral cannabis and such. And he's spent his whole life studying cannabis and the origins of cannabis and the ethnobotany, and ethnobotany is just the relation of humans with plants. So he seems to be a pretty good authority on this. Of course, the science is always changing, but I'm just going to read really quick. He actually wrote down a definition of landrace, and he said landraces are essentially locally adapted plant and animal varieties that evolve in response to natural environmental selective pressures in tandem with simple human selection for favorable characteristics without formal breeding, meaning it's not like a modern scientific breeding program. All domesticated plants and animals originated from wild populations evolving naturally. Once humans entered the scene, so humans, it's saying landrace are the result of humans intervening. So anyway, once humans entered the scene, the first steps towards landrace evolution began. Ancient humans would have encountered wild cannabis populations, collected seeds, brought them into cultivation, and within their localized, isolated ranges, cannabis landraces evolved. Landrace populations are often reported to be more genetically diverse than modern cultivars derived from them. So these are domesticated breeds, some dating back in time a tremendous amount, and they've become unique because they're totally isolated from other populations of cannabis, so they're not mixed with other genetics, and plus they have human selection and the environment basically shaping the evolution of those landrace varieties. And again, this applies to cucumbers, tomatoes, eggplants, pigs, dogs, cats, chickens, cows. Those are all, again, landrace, country. The English translation is country breed. So it may be helpful for people who want to contemplate this to just always, when you say landrace, think country breed or village breed or regional breed. So it's yes, they are, but again, it's not an original wild pure variety. And not to get too deep into this, these are whole other big topics, but most of the research thinks that cannabis originated somewhere in China, like the Yunnan province area, and then just kind of spread out over thousands and thousands of years. And then, each region that found cannabis and started growing cannabis, and keep in mind that cannabis was used for seed, fiber, and the actual effects, like the mind-altering effects, the good possibility that came later. After being around the plant, probably someone threw it on the fire and the smoke, and then they liked the effect, and eventually, so then they, probably started breeding for that effect, found the plants that had more effects. But yeah, probably the original, who knows? I'm just theorizing, just guessing here, but the original wild variety of cannabis probably had, less than 1% THC. But if you throw a huge pile of that on a fire, you might get a little effect. But then over thousands, tens of thousands of years of selective breeding by humans for that trait, the mind-altering effects, it's going to get enhanced. Just like fruits, vegetables, domestic plants, the fruit gets bigger, higher yields, better taste, such like that. Same thing with cannabis. So anyway, I hope that is helpful. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket or burst anyone's fantasy of some original Garden of Eden, pure, unadulterated by human cannabis, and if that was someone's fantasy of what landrace cannabis was, and that's a bummer, I'm just sorry, but it's just trying to share what's going on. And then the reality is, unfortunately, that sort of fantasy that does not seem to be grounded in reality or history actually has a real destructive and negative repercussion, though, is that all of a sudden, if one were to say like a Cambodian cannabis variety that's really amazing and super psychedelic and awesome, if you assume that that was just a wild, naturally occurring Cambodian cannabis that no humans ever did any work on, and that it just sprung from the jungle or from the forest, already at 18% THC, tasting like passion fruit, and with incredible psychedelic effects. And your belief is that it just sprung from the jungle without any human intervention. That all of a sudden means that you've just erased all the humans who worked for generations, hundreds if not thousands of years, to actually create the reality of what that Cambodian variety might be. So it's all of a sudden erasing some other culture, some other human's work, or an entire culture or a whole civilization's work that they put into creating their amazing masterpiece, Cambodian variety. So in a way, it disrespects, erases, and does not give credit, honor, or acknowledge, or again, respect or gratitude to the people who actually created these amazing cannabis varieties from certain regions. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to be sanctimonious and preach or be right or wrong. It's just as we have a more global cannabis community, and that there's recognize that there's cannabis appreciators all over the world, all over the globe, and actually spanning back in time for thousands and thousands of years. So stoners have been everywhere throughout time, and today they're all over the planet. It seems that acknowledging, recognizing, honoring, respecting where these amazing cannabis varieties came from, such as Thai stick, Cambodian, Oaxacan, these varieties, just know there are humans who came before us who put in a lot of work, a lot of intention, a lot of energy, and a lot of selection to get those varieties to that level of super high vibing, amazing masterpieces. And even the modern varieties that we have, like here in California, or the Dutch varieties, 99% of the work was done by ancestors from totally different cultures, and then just hate to say it, but kind of like a Western person then just crossing a Thai with a Mexican Landrace variety, and then taking credit and ownership for that is, 99% of that work was done by someone else, and just crossing it or pollen chucking it and developing it. It's still work, it's still cool, don't want to discredit that. But really, if we really want to be mindful and meditate on, trying to be righteous about our cannabis consciousness, is recognizing that all that work that went in before. So hopefully that clears up the whole landrace, Landrasse. And unfortunately, I don't know why they just took the phonetic version and didn't actually translate it to English. That probably would have cleared up a lot. But when you hear landrace, think country breed, village breed, regional breed, bred by humans. And anyway, hope that's helpful. Peace out.